Let's see. Welcome to the Parking Task Force, meeting of October 16. We're here at the Senior Center, opening it up and starting out with announcements. Anybody from the board? And I think the public will be silent tonight since there isn't anybody. And then we go into meeting minutes, which Wayne has circulated to you. And he's given you the top page only tonight. I have copies of all of that previous work, which was the findings and everything that I had going on ad nauseum, but I've got a different approach to it, as you'll see. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move we approve as written.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. There is no recent correspondence, so this is getting easy. And then the parking data I sent to you by email, but there is another page behind your agenda, I think, that just shows you the high-level summary of it. My scribbles are 2018, and the printed, the typed numbers are from this year. Slightly different reporting period, but the bulk of the season is captured by both. There were obviously a lot more tickets this year, and I don't know much to do with it, except to note that, beach-related was a huge portion of the 601 tickets that were issued, like 487, and all the rest were just 114. It was noticeable to me that the next most common ticket was in tow zones, and there were only 50 of those this year. So, any discussion on those numbers? Any comments?
So, does this mean that because there's not enough parking, there were more tickets?
I think it means that more tickets were issued, and I'm not sure I can infer anything from that.
I would lean more towards enforcement than, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's conjecture.
Yep.
I think the stickers on the windows probably made enforcement a little easier, from the machine.
Yep. And I think the beach crew was a lot more, I don't know if I want to say aggressive, but doing their job as compared to last year. They realized the pressure was on to try to make sure people were able to park if they had all of the permits right, so.
Yeah, and the fact that so many of them are for no beach permit, I would assume that there's a parking space there, they're just not entitled to use it.
Right, that's the way I'd interpret that too, so. So I think that, my guess on this is that there was more enforcement this year, but after the beach, everything else is pretty insignificant. So, with that,
Actually, the collection was about the same as last year. It was between voids and paid, it was 75% last year.
Yep.
So.
okay, really the purpose of this meeting is to get ready for the forum and to also be ready for a meeting with the selectmen. And I toyed with it. I thought about doing a PowerPoint presentation and all that sort of stuff, but I think this is a discussion item. But I'll happily take, we can easily project some items onto the screen if we decide there are some items we want to do. And so what you've got on my Parking Force 2 update of today's date is basically how I thought the presentation would go.
Tell me anything about the forum? I don't really know anything about the forum.
Here's a founder.
It was organized in the mid-90s to be a place where people could come and discuss issues related to the town. I would have to say that it has turned into much more of an informational session than one where citizens come and express their thoughts. But they do informational programs on a regular basis.
And does the select board attend?
Sometimes. A lot of people attend. It's not uncommon for them to have 100 people.
They're very busy. I mean, usually it's very informative.
You can go on, it's online, the meetings are online.
Is the purpose to educate or ask other people about our work in the parking task force, or for us to gather information?
I think it's mostly for us to educate, but undoubtedly we'll pick up a point or two as we go through it. A good example of where I think the forum's done a great job is in the pre-town meetings. They discuss the sensitive subjects that are on a town meeting warrant, and it's good for the public and it's good for the committees who are presenting. So, I think as Dale says, it's an information channel. And so my thought is that we would do the presentation. We don't need to do it, but I think it's kind of the Wellfleet way.
Just a thought, one of the things that can be done there is to correct misinformation. Hopefully, the people who have some concerns that they've expressed in many different ways will be there. And I'm thinking about a recent letter to the editor talking about drinking on the beach and so on, sort of misunderstood, I think, what we were all about, but that could be explained, and we've heard about the situation in this particular area. So that could be helpful, and I hope people like that will come and say, what about this or what about that?
Yeah.
How many people usually attend?
Well, as I say, it could be up to 100, but it's probably commonly 30 to 50.
Just depends
guys-
upon the topic.
The motto in the past had been, if we don't get quantity, at least we'll get quality.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
I think,
I don't know when this session's gonna be. I thought Sheila might be here to guide us.
she's the president, what is it called, the chairman, president?
President.
President of the forum, and she's been pushing to have this session. I'm fine with going straight into the select board, but, it is a good practice run to do what we're doing, and get a lot of people and get some momentum in order to go to the select board meeting, so.
How much detail do you plan on getting into before you sort of throw it open to the?
Well, that's
Crowd.
this is basically an outline. I
Okay.
might be too long.
Yeah.
And certainly welcome some feedback. But it's hard not to start out with a little bit of history, and just mention that there have been lots of prior studies, and that it was really the crisis of July 4 of last year that stimulated many people to get concerned about this parking situation again. And then to let them know that the parking task force was established in late summer last year, and we had our first meeting in August. Then just to give the people the charge that we have is what's in bold there. And to remind them that we are an advisory board and we operate under the open meeting laws and all that sort of stuff. Then if I don't know when it is, I don't know that I'll be there, but I'll try to be there. But I was going to suggest that I introduce the people. Hi, Ginny. I was just gonna name the names, and then say that we were all on a steep learning curve, because we had pretty limited data, but we did have good support from the beach administration, the police department, and the harbor master. And what we've done is solicit testimony from many people involved, also solicited general public comments, and we've had plenty of those. Just as part of the game here, we have had all but one of our meetings videotaped. And we did have a session, an update session with the select board on July 11. And to mention that Janet Reinhardt has been a frequent select board liaison.
June 11th, 2019, is that
Thank you.
right?
If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm not a very good proofreader. So, And then general background, parking is very visible as we all use public parking and experience seasonal constraints. And then this is kind of a statement that Joe suggested, and I really liked it. Wellfleet in the summer is always going to be packed at times, and we will never be able to accommodate everyone and make them happy. Just get that out there. Parking is, and just for more background, parking is the responsibility of 3 departments, the beach, the police, and the marina. Got to give credit to the good efforts that they've done. And then also remind people that there are parking regulations in lots of places in this town, like the general bylaws, zoning bylaws, marina rules and regs, and the beach rules and regs. And then also, Wellfleet public property is very limited, especially in the local areas of parking needs, i.e. downtown or along the beaches. So, and another statement, increased parking pressure is going to come from ocean beach erosion, increased usage at the marina if dredging is completed, and also just general increases in business activity. The work of the parking task force is, we've had now 21 meetings, counting today, I think, and we're generally available on the first and third Wednesdays at the senior center. We did surveys so that we could get public input into 3 segments of the parking, and we collected activity data at the Ocean Beach parking in 2019. The Ocean Beach parking, we surveyed the taxpayers as one primary area of our concern, and we focus at the ocean beaches because they're the largest areas, the most popular, and they're monitored. Pond usages are being restricted because of fragile ecology reasons, and we did not study the bay beaches, Mayo Beach, Duck Harbor, and Indian Neck. And then I was going to suggest that we use Bruce's summary that you did, and I'd appreciate it if you'd give it when the time comes.
Sure.
And just go from there, because I think that really captured it all. We didn't do all of the cross tabulations and all that sort of stuff, but I think your summary caught the big points. And then Wayne, on yours, we need to get it down to the big points.
Yeah, that shouldn't be too hard.
I mean, things like, how many times did each parking lot fill?
Yeah, I think there's probably 10 or 15 salient points from all of that data that's interesting.
Yep,
I'll put something together and send it around for you to review.
okay, all right, that'd be helpful.
Can I make a comment? If
Yes,
you don't mind?
please.
Just a thought.
Lauren?
I think there's a lot of great information here. Query whether this should be a handout when someone walks in the door, so they can refer to it.
Okay,
Because I'm just afraid, and it's not a knock, this is good stuff, but I'm afraid that if you give all this, it's like a waitress that comes over and tells you what 10 specials are. But seriously, and after the first one, I can't remember. You know, she gets done, I have no idea what the specials are.
no, that's,
And query whether, and I could sit down with you if you wanted to, and try to hit the high points of the beach, the in-town, and the harbor.
okay.
I just my,
Well, so far, I've just given you background.
okay,
And Bruce would bring on the taxpayer survey, and there were probably 15 points that you had overall.
Yeah. Well, maybe Sheila could tell us what works best for these
Yeah.
forums.
Well, I think that, I hear what, my apologies for being a little late, but I do think this is all good information. I do think it's good to break it up with visuals. We'll have something on a board, like, when you're doing the survey results, like here are some of the, it's not bad to do something on the screen, so it's just not, we're standing there kind of reading something to them, that there's something for people to look at. Maybe even we could take a couple of photos of what the size of, parking lots, things like this is what it is. At one time it was this. Or the maps, it's not a bad thing. We could put maps up there, just showing what is the future and to things to think about, the maps that you had. I think things like that just help break it up. And you can just kind of put it and say, does anybody have any comments, questions, however you want to do it? Because then some of it will come from the audience instead of us, kind of giving a lecture. And not a lecture, but like a lesson, a class or something. So, yeah, so I just think if you can mix it up a little bit like that, and then just kind of, we sort of stop at a certain point, say, is everybody following this? Everybody have any questions at this point? Whatever. And then they and then you can go, oh yeah, we have that information. And,
Well, I think, thinking of visuals, the only one that really jumps to mind is the one that Suzanne has of all the parking areas in town.
yeah, that's
And I didn't want to go into detail and all that sort of stuff,
right.
because I think the guts of where we're headed are in these surveys.
And it's just not bad to show people, this is what we're talking about, remember? Now think about this parking lot in a different way, like it could disappear, or it is shrinking, and this is part of our problem. Maybe it's not a crisis today, but these are things that we have to keep, we have to continue to come to a,
Well, I do have some erosion rates that I can talk about.
Yep, that would be
On
good.
the Ocean Beach. I think people would be interested in that.
in those maps. I think those are good visuals for people to keep in their minds on a lot of reasons, not just parking.
Well, I agree that having visuals makes it a lot more interesting.
I would support Will's comment. I think we're addressing a variety of people, some of whom like to delve into the numbers, and others who want generalities and conclusions. And by giving a handout, the conclusions of the surveys, and our giving an overview of the results, then various people can deal with that as they choose.
So just go around for aerial surveys of the parking lots.
Or whatever we have like that, I think it's just kind of bring it home to people, this is what's happening. And, you can even have that while you're kind of talking. Just, it's,
Be nice to have a photo of the line at Newcomb
Yeah.
Hollow or something.
yeah, with Will in his New York Times.
Too bad we didn't get out this video.
I know, we should have.
Summer. I'm just fine.
That's right, I'm fine. Will could be there, I'm having a good time.
What about, how Lower Cape TV has been going around and they do interviews? What if we did like an interview format?
And-
Show a little video rather than get up, just a thought. Would that help break it up?
Interview who?
I think that'd be a little, well, who would
Funny?
be interviewed?
No. We'd have, like, Jack Peak's been doing these great shows where you would actually just go and have a conversation with him and they would film it. If you could zoom in on different pieces for you. Yeah, just a thought.
Yeah.
Break it
It's
up.
not a bad thought. I'm just wondering if you,
Just did that great John Cumber was just interviewed. Did you see that? It was great, though.
I love John.
Interesting.
He'll spice it up.
Anyway, it's just a thought.
yeah, he will.
What's the length of most of the forum? Do
They
you have,
could go
do you
an
have, do you
hour.
try to?
Some of them have gone a couple of hours, but, an hour, people, they get it. They don't need to be, we don't need to keep people there. They're very happy to get the information. It's not like, oh, I thought I was going to be here 2 hours. It's none of that. People are happy to go. As long as it's, now I've been informed, they'll have a discussion. It's very surprising. Sometimes you think it's going to be, this is going to be 45 minutes, and then people start engaging, and you could be there till, then it's like, we got to go. The place is
Is
closed.
Hills here?
Are we gonna allow questioning by section or wait till the end?
Well, I think that's something you have to think about. I think it's not bad to present something, and you could, it all depends on how you feel comfortable. I mean, some people have said, let us present, this amount of material, and then we're going to ask for questions. Save your questions to the end of this. Some people say, we're going to go section by section. Do we have, I think it's, I have to talk into the microphone. I think, I think that,
There we go.
I think it depends on how you feel comfortable, and you can even ask the audience that, would you like to be able to ask questions in between, we'll let you ask questions, but that's,
Well, there are some natural breaks where questions would be right.
right.
Yeah,
Um, What I did up until saying that, well, let's do the Bruce Ketcher stuff was all background. And I tried to leave out as much as I could, but it's still tedious, and I know that.
Right.
It's only gonna take 5 minutes
Yeah.
to do
I know.
what you just did.
Now, is that, okay, this is for the meeting, so, okay. This is not what we're planning for the select board. Select
I
board's-
think it'd be fairly similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want you to know I found it fascinating, so.
You made it fascinating, Bruce.
My guess is that one of the things that might come out of this is we're probably going to get a lot of anecdotal observations that may or may not be borne out by the numbers that have been developed.
Right.
And that would be, I think, useful. I mean, like, your one line here about the members of the task force all on a steep learning curve. I was highly offended by that, except with limited data.
Sorry about that, Dave.
Not quite all right.
I'm glad you weren't on a steep learning curve, because I was.
I didn't imply I wasn't, but the addition of the data part is
Okay, so I should emphasize that.
accurate.
All right. I mean, we can come up with slides for the surveys.
What can SurveyMonkey do as opposed to printing out the entire survey with questions and,
I'll make, the highlight results, I'll have a PowerPoint and some graphs
okay,
Great.
for each point.
for each one of them, yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
But what you had before, I thought was nicely organized. This thing that you did before, where you talked about the overall results. Taxpayers have mixed views. Taxpayers visit ocean beaches primarily between, and that sort of stuff. Not necessarily following the sequence of the survey. So
Yeah.
I don't think I want to go there.
No.
What kind of charts would you use? Bar charts?
Yeah, keep it simple,
Yeah,
showing.
okay. But we ought to do the same for the other studies that we have, some degree of consistency,
Yeah.
okay?
All right.
Joe?
Yeah, I'm aware, I think we're all aware of the fact that there were 2 parking studies preceding ours.
Yep.
And, I mean, I think we are going to present a very comprehensive picture of our findings from these wonderful studies, evaluations that have been done. But I can't help but think that many people are going to come in to hear this with expectations. And I do think there's merit in our offering very specific conclusions. For example, that the beach parking situation is a fluid one, that we are at the mercy of nature, and that what we are presenting now could change rather dramatically with some heavy erosion, and perhaps what the town could be looking at for resources. Another one is the marina.
Yep.
Certainly, the dynamics there are going to change a great deal in about 3 years when dredging is completed. And we know that's been the municipal parking lot to so many people and businesses. And I think it should be stated that that is one of the elephants around the bend down the road.
Well, I
that
tried to say
everybody
that, Joe.
should be prepared for.
Can-
I tried to see that in the background in general on page 1. Yeah.
Since we do have that, there is a study completed, the one with the Cape Cod Commission, and that seemed, if I remember right, and Joe can help me here, I think it did have a lot to talk about the marina and suggestions to the marina. You know, if the town chooses they want to do this, this is what could be done. You know, they were just kind of giving suggestions, here's this or that, and here's what we found, this is what you could do, now it's up to you guys, and call us if you need any more help. Might not be bad to have some of those available for people, just to see that this was the conclusions of other people coming in doing studies. We wanted to see, is this,
Is that an opening shot, or is that later in the meeting? Because of what my,
oh, we could just have them available and say, you know, we left this available because these were things that were done, and yet people were still like, is this really necessary? What is the real ground, what is the information from the ground? So that's what we have done to sort of complement work that has been done. And, you know, these are things, this is a suggestion that we may have to embrace in the future. So at least people would see that there could be a dramatic change at the marina coming down the road, and it's not necessarily just our conclusion. It's kind of like, this is what other people who do planning and look at things have also kind of concluded. And those are big changes that we're not ready to do yet, but there's things that our select board should kind of take a look at as well. Again,
But the
refresh their
dynamics of those prior studies have changed. For example, at that time, we had many more beach parking spots. There's a lot we have lost since that time. I think Suzanne told us 250. At that time, I believe when the last study was done, dredging was not needed. So that was a different dynamic at the marina. I think we need to be focused on the conditions today and our vulnerabilities, particularly with the beach situation, and what some people think inevitably lies ahead.
But, you know, improvements at the beach, as we've said, are largely in the hands of nature. The marina, however, we've heard specific problems, and we have control over dealing with those problems, and I think that's really where we ought to focus, proposing solutions or suggesting some avenues for improving the situation down there. Because there's not, I mean, I think all the studies we've done have just shown there's not a whole lot that can be done at the beach, short of a very expensive increased parking, shuttles, and so on. But the situation at the marina could be addressed simply with a reevaluation of how the parking is done down there.
yet this year was pretty tame.
Good weather, though.
That reevaluation, one would think, would come in 3 years when the demand is so much greater. Is that what you're thinking, Dale?
Well, I'm thinking that we have one situation in town where a business is spending $50,000 for parking, and another situation where businesses are spending nothing for parking. And if we get to that point, I would suggest that we offer, or have the selectmen offer to these businesses, which would you prefer? Paid parking for all who do not have a beach or dump permit? Or would you prefer to have X dollars to lease a group of parking spots for your business?
But if you do that, Dale, you're gonna take those spots out of circulation.
Right.
And to me, that's not the right way to go.
No. Well, it's
Plus, you
something
have a
to
control
think
issue.
about.
You have a control
Yeah.
issue. I mean, it's manpower. People have to be there to man the gates, I guess, or however you plan to do it.
And it doesn't increase the number of parking spots.
No.
No, it just might improve the circulation, but, the other thing, you said there's not much we can do for the beaches. I think one thing we can do, which I think Suzanne's gonna head to it, but probably not for next year, at least based on what she said so far, is, the availability on the web can improve people's attitude towards going to the beach, or, so I think that's something we have to recommend pursuing.
I have a question
What,
for,
like an app you mean?
for us.
Yeah, an
Do-
application, yeah.
Do we think that expanding Whitecrest is an inevitable idea we have to grapple with? And,
I'd be happy to hear the thoughts.
well,
I have my own.
so say we're losing parking spaces, so that would start, we'd expand that. Maybe accesses would be going down. That might be where you'd need a shuttle going through all beaches. So from that parking lot.
You won't be able to get there after Ocean View Drive doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
That's right. So, and that means taking the road, I think it was Dale's suggestion, would have to go in the back of Whitecrest somehow, or we'd have to, it would be a huge undertaking,
That's all national park.
Well, no, the land behind it's the town. You could put a road. Yeah.
Spots are.
Yeah, right.
But certainly beyond Whitecrest, it's all national park.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I'm hoping that we can present the beach parking situation with a broader view. I'm hoping we can learn from the lessons of the past, specifically when the hearing was held about the possible expansion of Whitecrest and the comments that were made. And I think presenting the big picture is going to be more helpful to everybody. Starting out with a statement that the town has lost 250 parking spaces. So when we are looking at avenues, one of which might be Whitecrest, another is Shuttle, that we're not looking to add new spaces as much as we are looking to replenish those that have been lost.
But the number of times that the parking lots filled up this year is nowhere near at a crisis level. We've got that data now.
Yeah, that's what, in terms of, I'm looking at your outline and under Ocean Beach parking on page 2. I'm just wondering whether we shouldn't simply say, because if I were going and didn't know that much, there's two concerns, or at least there's two issues that have been in the news over the years, is the expansion of Whitecrest. There was a big brouhaha about that. And some people don't mind the line like me, and other people do. But I think that if we're going to say we're not going to do anything with we're not going to recommend anything on Whitecrest right now, and say why. It just doesn't justify it. And in terms of the line at Nanuko, and the most striking, some people liked the parking, some didn't, but still, only 16% would say they were going to take a shuttle.
Right.
So, that's almost for me anyway, because I'm interested in that, but that's almost the key thing in all the parking. That's all the work we did on looking at the parking, that's the most telling statistic there is, for me, is that 16% would use the shuttle. That means the people that use that beach, at least now, don't want a shuttle. They don't want an expansion of Whitecrest. They'd rather wait there or leave.
And also they adjust. The other percentages have just said, I will just go at a different time. They've adjusted their schedules to go at off times. People who live here.
We can get into those types of discussions, but I think we still need Bruce to give those
I agree.
kind of numbers as a background.
Right.
And then when somebody wants to bring it up,
Right, we can say, this is what we found when we
But I
looked at that, and this was like the
But
general.
the lack of demand for a shuttle would reinforce the idea that we're not at the crisis stage.
Yeah.
And that people do not feel that they're shut out for the most part.
Would we agree that basically after all this step wouldn't we agree that maybe we just leave the beach parking as it is right now? Is that, it seems like the first thing you said here was the crisis of July 4th, 2018. That was the whole impetus for this entire,
this round.
this whole committee,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And we're finding out that that was a one-off type of thing where
Well,
a million people showed up and we
But
weren't
I-
ready for it.
Yep.
And now we are ready for it.
And
But
we-
in general, it's not perfect, but it works out there, you know? And I think we ought to maybe start finding out about what we can do at Whitecrest, how much certain things would cost. I mean, we could start looking into what may or may not need to be done there, but
And there's
I would
still-
recommend that the beaches, leave them as is, the town, leave as is, the marina is what we need to focus on. If that's one thing we figured out here, is that the marina is the real hot button issue, if there is one.
I agree,
Otherwise, it's kind of working.
right. And some of the problems with Whitecrest was not just the proposed expansion, there was no proposal. It was just, we're going to expand, and this is what it's going to cost, and there was
Right.
no numbers or anything behind it.
Right.
I mean, it was like, what?
Right.
What, I
Yeah.
mean, this is,
Well, and that's what we tried to get, was that data this year as to, you know, how many times do the beaches really fill up?
right,
And,
right. Is it going to be worth doing it?
If there should be a question at the forum or from the select board, recognizing how vulnerable we are to erosion, and the question is directed at this committee. If we have a bad winter with a lot of erosion and lose a significant number of parking spaces, what are you recommending to meet the present demand for beach parking? I do think we have to have some response ready for that.
Well, there's two options. There's the Whitecrest option, and there's the cheaper but may not work option of increasing LeCounte Hollow by changing over to parallel spaces.
Or a shuttle.
And, well,
Or a shuttle back and forth? Right.
But-
People
but,
don't want a
Joe,
shuttle.
I think we're, you know, where that crisis is, depends on how many spaces you use. I don't think we're losing as many as what we fear. It's slower than what we expect. If you lose 3 feet a year, I've actually had two different numbers from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, but one is 3 feet a year and the other is 4.8.
Fine.
But, you know, that's, and those are long-term rates. So, over a big period of time.
We haven't lost any parking spaces at Newcomb for a number of years. But when we did the last time, it was a big hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes it doesn't happen gradually all the time.
It rarely
the
happens
other-
gradually, it usually
other
happens
Big,
in a big way.
yeah.
One more, Ginny, but the other thing is, I think people need to be aware of the danger of Ocean View Drive. Don't expect building a parking lot at Whitecrest is gonna take care of all the beaches, because it won't.
Right.
And, you know,
won't be able to get to 'em.
Maybe the message is, you, the town, needs to work with the seashore to find an alternate route, and that's a big uphill climb. Ginny?
I was just gonna say, do we know how many feet are left between Ocean View Drive? 67, was it, or
I
probably
think
less
it's
now, right?
87 or something, I had that number.
87 of the houses. So don't you think, like, long-term, there's 3 acres next door here? Didn't we hear that before? That could potentially be used for access to Cahoon Hollow and LeCounte's. And then
It
if,
can-
you know, say we lose Ocean View Drive at Buddy Purkell's old house, then then Whitecrest could be used to service Whitecrest and LeCounte's. Is that a potential long-term thought? Make sense?
Yeah, I mean, all of that requires shuttle
now.
business, and I don't know that the town's ready to establish a shuttle business.
Right. But I mean, like, you know, down the road, if they're asked what the future.
I missed something. What's the issue with Ocean View Drive?
Erosion.
It's gonna fall
It's
into.
gonna be
ocean.
in the
People think it's
ocean
gonna
at some
fall in the
point.
ocean soon.
Yeah, those houses aren't
About
going to be there
15
forever. And then,
In about 15 or 20 years, you won't be able to get from one end of Ocean View Drive to the other.
Without modifications, yeah.
Between Whitecrest and Cahoon Hollow.
And the most likely place is near Whitecrest.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
They can't even get through there, Wayne.
And historically, the park has not given land, like in Eastham, when they lost theirs.
what was interesting during the Whitecrest parking lot debate when Dennis was selectman, Dennis Murphy. That last meeting, he said, just remember, Eastham used to have an Ocean View Drive. They don't have one anymore. And I was like, wow, I didn't know Eastham had an Ocean View Drive. But, and that is a reality that, you know, those houses, I mean, they've gone back as far as they can. If you've seen them move, they're like flush on the road because that's as far as they can go. And once either they're going to decide, and hopefully they will decide to remove the house as opposed to letting it just or stuff in the
Raquel's
ocean.
old house has about 20 feet in front of it.
Yeah.
It's really tight. I mean,
It's
and I
very
knew
tight.
that house when I was a little kid.
Marla.
Yeah, miles.
What you usually lose is your septic or your well, so you get condemned before you lose the house.
And we won't let erosion go all the way to the road surface before we shut that road down.
Well, yeah, hopefully not.
So this has been a good discussion, I guess we're still talking about preparing for the forum. So the question I had is, what other expectations do you think people coming to the forum will have about information that they want to receive or questions they want answered?
Well, I had suggested we put a opportunity for people to present questions before the meeting, particularly for the non-residents, taxpayers and those folks, so that you might have some indication there. And I think it might be interesting, just at the beginning of the meeting, to ask how many people watched our meetings regularly, because many of them may be, you know, fully educated, who knows?
Our attendance is, our viewership is going down.
Oh, okay, well,
Oh,
Know how many views?
I think we should
I haven't had it in a while, but it was,
have an opening
Headed downhill.
song.
Liven it up here a little.
well,
we reached conclusions, that was the thing that happened.
look, I've given you all these numbers on page 2, and both Bruce and Wayne would give you more numbers. We can put those into some graphical form.
I think that's better, it's a little confusing the way it's,
Yeah.
a graph would be nice, or see what SurveyMonkey comes up with, and may not have to.
Well, we know the bar charts that they do.
Right, right.
Definitely mention that the revenues went up too, that's important, right? Fewer people.
Yeah, beach revenue was up this year.
We are an advisory committee, and the people who will do the work are Suzanne and Mike and all that.
Right.
And, you know, as to whether they want to have a Whitecrest, I would only question whether you need it now, because we don't have the data that supports that.
Right.
No, well, that's
Yeah,
what
but
I
we're
meant, there's
just-
fewer cars, but the revenue has gone up this year, right?
Well, 'cause-
That's what-
partly because the,
The taxpayers, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Not as a selling point.
We've
If we're going to
never,
lose Ocean View Drive, what would the sense be of building another parking lot?
right,
Right. You just put more stuff in the way.
Yeah, and so just thinking about it, one of our satellite ones here or at the school that we've talked about, does that become a better service point down the
Yeah, but that's nothing we can, that's like we're starting from scratch, you know, we
No,
can't,
right. But I
can't get
think-
into that, that would
But I
just be a
think-
guess
no,
to throw
I
that out
agree.
now.
But-
road? But I think we should be prepared for these questions as, on, for the forum.
Well, yeah, and I think how we would say that is, you know, the future is going to present itself. You know, we're going to be faced with, the certainty is that we will lose some. And how we want to tackle that, these are the different methods that could happen. Any of these would have to really be addressed when people are ready to take action, and, you know, we would all have to weigh in then. But, you know, we could expand the parking lot, we could do a shuttle system, we could have a satellite parking and shuttle. There are various ways that it can be handled if you want to still get people to the beach or people want to get to the beach. But these are things that we are going to have to, you have to know now that these are possibilities that are going to come down the line. And when they start coming down the line, you can't be, you know, saying, when did this happen? We know it's happening. The realities that we have to face, there's not as clear and, you know, present danger at this point, but it's coming, and as a town, we should start being aware of our options and grapple with it. And I also think that, you know, talking about the marina is very important, and I think it's also important to state that somewhere in there, not to put other restaurants or businesses on the line, but, you know, there is a business that's paying this, there's got to be some sort of maintenance to this. There's a lot of different uses of the of the marina by all kinds of people, and it's just getting wear and tear on that, and, you know, it would be good to.
But then I go back to my statement that it hasn't been a problem this year. So what is it you're trying to solve?
Well, it wasn't all the time, but as we know, once the dredging is done, you know, 5 years from now, that could be a cluster down there, and
And we'll need to find more space.
you'll have to find more space, and the select people need to start having those conversations with businesses down there, and people who, in the marina, and the harbor master, and,
We've talked about moving the beach permit office out of there.
yeah,
And,
right,
You know,
the more we can get out of the way.
and there's some other things down there. To me, I wouldn't save the grass strip in the middle of Mayo Beach parking lot.
Right.
That's a lot of square feet that can be used for parking.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we haven't talked about that, but
That's not a bad thing to throw in there.
Yep.
That there's always that.
One of the questions I think people will have in the back of their mind, because everybody in town does, is how did the sharks impact things this last year? So I think we need to present data that says, you know, the number of parking permits pretty much was the same.
Yep.
And so, you know, Wellfleet's not falling apart, and people are still coming here, no matter what, because this is
Right.
the best place in the world.
Right. No, it
just may
is.
not have access to the beach,
Right.
to the ocean beach.
Right, they can all have fun down there, those sharks, and see.
Well, how are we gonna do this? You know,
I-
maybe I should go, maybe we ought to have some recommendations to date, and these are just from me. And, you know, if we want to sanctify them or kill them, that's fine with me. But just on page 3, I think we need to continue the data collection that we've been doing. I think, you know, Wayne and the police and Suzanne and all that have really helped to get a feeling for what is out there. The use of credit cards, not cash, at Whitecrest, that had a source with us. So, I mean, that's one that we can say.
And you generated another $20,000 in revenue this year,
Right.
over last year.
And it's, you can say a lot of the things that came up in this meeting that were like low-hanging fruit that could be addressed, Suzanne did grab it and kind of implement it and give it a try. So some of the improvements have already happened, which is why we see, maybe this year went by a little, but it was 1 year. If we had done this study the year before, we'd be like, oh my God, we gotta build and we gotta.
It's gonna be, that's,
You know, so it's, you know, it is good to have a couple of years, at least, several years to get a
Dan, were the beachcombers parking revenues up this year also?
yeah, a little bit, not much, because it's, you know,
Only so
once
many
it's
spaces.
full, it's
Yeah,
full.
yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, not much. But I
And
kinda
you-
could, if Suzanne says that Whitecrest was this much more busier, then I kinda half consider like, this, not many people park at Whitecrest and actually go to Whitecrest.
No, it's you, it's people going to your facility.
right.
And
right.
I think you said last year, roughly 60% of the people that use their coupons, is that still run roughly?
No, more than that, I would
Oh.
say, yeah, no, way more than, on holiday weekends,
Yeah.
it's like 50-50, people are not coming in. But on a regular weekend, you know, we get anywhere between 8 to 15 people don't, or 20 people don't cash in their
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Those
And,
are day parkers.
day parkers.
Yeah.
And if people who park at Whitecrest don't get a coupon for the Beachcomber, they just pay the town 30 and
Yep.
come to Coon Hollow, take a free shuttle.
Oh, okay,
They don't get anything from us, except a free ride to the beach.
Free ride.
okay.
I think it's an interesting statistic, though, that you actually, you know, now have in your hand, that not every single person who you give a voucher to is always there for your restaurant.
Oh, yeah,
Everybody
even
always
people
thinks,
who
"Oh, they're
park
all
right
there
next
for
to the restaurant
Right.
may not even be coming to the
Coming into the
restaurant. They're just
restaurant. I
getting a
just
good
thought it was
spot to the
interesting.
beach.
I thought that was an interesting
Now, if they pay,
fact that came out of that.
was it 20 to park in the front lot? They get a coupon there, too, okay.
Well, what sort of recommendations do you guys want to have? Try to explain these to you. The credit cards we talked about.
Yeah, next year's gonna be improved to the point where it's
Yeah, better,
chip.
and also better Ethernet or whatever,
Yep.
so that should be good.
I'm not sure that'll change the number of people who pay for parking.
But, no.
Well,
we'll
some
reduce
people
the
didn't pay
frustration.
this year.
Yeah.
Some
I
people
think
were
it'll
on the
catch
honor
that.
system, as Suzanne said, you know, and
It'll catch that, but
Yeah.
that's, it's not going to
Yeah, there were
provide more
periods
parking
of time they'd let
spaces.
people park for free. Yep.
Bruce, did you have something?
Oh, I see it here now, because there were a lot of people in the survey, there are people who would love to have some kind of online app or
Yep.
way to figure out, so you have it there.
But I also added a thing that it would be better than a highway sign.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I don't think the sign.
The
I
highway
think, I
sign
think
is,
either of them are gonna be really difficult to implement, my own personal
Because
opinion.
it can change in a second by the time you get there.
Yeah, well,
I mean, I just don't see an app saying, you know, you're in your car and you're, you know, at the edge of Wellfleet and Truro, and it says there's 6 spots at Whitecrest. You know, you're gonna have to keep refreshing it the whole ride there. Oh,
Right.
now there's 4, now there's 2, now there's 6, now there's,
Right.
you know, I just don't see how, maybe it can work, but.
Yeah, I mean, I live on Grosse Hill Road, but not far from the police station. So when I go to the beach, I go up to the end of my driveway and I turn right and I drive right, I drive down the beach. Sometimes there's 6, 7, 8 cars go by me, all going to the beach. So that line or
Yeah.
that parking lot can fill up instantly, you
Yep.
know, so it is tough. That's why I always thought, if you wanted to know what the line is at Newcomb, put in a camera, just show up the road.
Right.
You can,
well, that is the other option.
don't,
That's
if you,
actually
if
video
that-
cam?
that's online, that'll answer your question.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
I now tend to agree with you.
And there's no work other than installing, getting the system up and running once, and then you don't have to input a thing except push the on button.
I think, Dan, you were looking into newer cameras. Is that still
Yeah,
being worked
we
at?
did a slight upgrade, but people check our cameras all the time. I think a lot of that's for surf reasons, you know, how are the waves today?
But it only shows the
But,
front lot.
but people are on that webcam constantly, you know, checking.
And Chamber of Commerce picks it up too, right?
Yeah, it's on a bunch of different sites
Yeah.
that people can.
I think the camera way is the way to do it. Just put cameras and the people can look. The only problem with that is it's a distraction if you're driving. I mean, it's not something you look at quickly, but
Where would they be? Like, how would you get the whole?
you have to have 2 cameras, one at the booth and, you know, most would need 1 or 2 cameras.
Pointing
Put
in or
one
pointing out?
on the roof of that booth, they'll look right up the
understand where
road.
you're
You see up, even going up the hill.
The other
I don't know why you need more than one.
the other alternative,
Point it right
I
at
think,
the
It'd be creepy. Would you think? I don't know. I guess I feel like we should have, there should be someplace left where we don't have cameras everywhere. I don't know.
I think they could be
We're not
useful.
London
And-
yet.
And I think the idea that, you know, we just say cameras, you should look at cameras. They may be preferable to an app, and they're certainly better than a highway sign. So,
well, there are already cameras at the marina.
are they online?
Not online, but they're security
security.
cameras.
Yeah.
I mean, I've mentioned it before, the way to do it with no touch and have an app would be, you have the sensors like they have at a stoplight to make the lights change. You put one on the way in and the one on the way out. So first thing in the morning, the guard puts in how many spaces are taken, and the thing automatically keeps track of how many are left by itself. But I don't know how expensive that is, but it's, 4 different beaches you have to do it at.
That just seems like an awful lot of work to me.
For 8 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
that just doesn't seem feasible.
Hop in your
Start-
car, drive down to the beach, find a spot.
I think what we're trying to.
It's worked
Your
forever.
spots are
That's
good.
what most people do.
Data is
Yeah,
correct. It
plenty of
wasn't a
parking.
problem anyways, right?
Sorry, Jenny, try again.
Data's correct, it wasn't a problem anyways.
Hey,
Yeah.
So if
I
it's
don't-
no problem, we don't need cameras.
No, well, the people are mixed about whether there's a parking problem. You know, we asked them that. So it's not like everybody says, oh, there's not a problem. There are
Yeah,
some
they see
people.
there's a
No,
problem.
there's a perceived problem,
I
for
think we
sure,
need to
perceived
ask-
problem.
Townspeople, how they feel
Yeah.
about cameras at the beaches,
We're here to
so we can get that.
Yeah, that's not a bad,
let them know
that
that
can be
it
put
may
out
just
there,
be
what do people
perception
think
and
of
not
it?
reality.
I'm not sure you're taking a picture of the beach, you're taking a picture of the parking area.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Or
know.
you're taking a picture of people sitting in their cars, waiting up the hill.
See what newspaper they're
You'd
reading.
have to hold your nighttime stuff like this.
What sort of conclusions do we want to have? I mean,
If I could offer
Yep.
a thought on, on the overall picture, I think we have concluded that there is not a crisis with beach parking. We have concluded that there is not a crisis downtown. We have not had a lot of negative feedback
Yep.
from merchants. But as Dan said, in the near future, the hot button issue is going to be the marina. And I think that demand is going to start in the second year of dredging, which is 2 years from now. Okay? Because in that second year, Area 1 will be dredged all the way around the pier and in front of Harbor Masters area. Third year, the mooring basin.
There you pick up 50 moorings?
Well, when the mooring basin area 2 is done.
Oh, that's next
we-
year.
Yeah, that's the final year. We could add as many as 50 to generate revenue. But we recognize that the ocean parking beach issue is unpredictable.
Let me take you back to the marina. This is a typical example of what I had put down there, that new expanded business permits should carefully consider parking availability. Why do we want the 50 new boat basins, boat moorings?
Well, one, it would return the mooring basin to its original configuration and accommodation of boats. And
Why
two,
would we do that?
that's a
I'm
subject
serious.
that's up for
Yeah.
discussion. Nothing has been decided.
Yeah.
It's simply an information piece.
But
What-
have you
what's a mooring,
considered
1,000?
parking when you're doing that?
That would have to be considered. You'd also have to
What
consider,
if there isn't parking?
then perhaps the town decides they don't want to add 50 spaces. However, they'd also have to consider in that discussion the additional revenue that the 50 spaces would generate. And the fact that not everybody who has a mooring goes out every day of the week. Some are only weekend people, some are a couple of days. But back to my thought that there's not a crisis at the beach or downtown, but I think we can accurately anticipate the marina being a controlled situation, that in 2 years, it's going to happen all at once.
Right.
When people have that kind of access. And therefore, I do think we should make a brief statement to address that, what we anticipate. We don't have to get into, unless you want to, all the constituencies that use our marina/municipal parking lot now, but I do think we need to make a statement what is going to be happening pretty quickly.
Why is that the marina's parking lot? Why is that the marina's domain? And does that automatically restrict it to people using the marina as a marina?
You're asking a question that has not been answered and can only be answered ultimately by the select board. But because we are a parking committee in one of the 3 main areas we addressed, I do think a statement is in order about what we realistically can anticipate.
Right.
And then let the town decide, do they want additional moorings? Do they want to designate for boaters? Do they want to keep it as a municipal lot and the priority not be boaters? I think those are all on the table that the town has to decide. But because we are charged with the issue of parking in the town, and the marina is one of the 3 main entities, I do think a statement should be included that we are going to be anticipating a need to reevaluate the priority down there soon.
I agree with that, and but I also, I don't see a problem in saying it's not just the dredging that could be impacting. There is many people who use the marina. There is a lot of uses for it, from the businesses to the strollers, the walkers, and the, going around now, we have a walking area, to people leaving their car and Ubering to a beach. So there's many other, and there's, that's a new thing that has emerged in the last 5 years. So it's only going to increase. It's a shared space. Those who share that space should be engaged, the selectmen. My big recommendation is that the selectmen have got to start engaging with the players down at the marina and say, this is what's coming. How are we all going to do it and have enough for everyone here, that you're all going to be able to have your businesses and you're going to be able to do your marina, and you can have people just wanting to get an ice cream. How are we going to do it? And that's what they're going to have those conversations and come to a conclusion. And I think that's something that is in front of them that they need to see.
Will?
Yeah, and in that regard as well, if I were on the board of selectmen and this issue came up and I had to decide, well, what are we going to do? I don't know what to do. I mean, I don't know anything about parking and this and, in the real detailed sense of what a parking engineer would know. So I'd be looking at the selectmen and say, well, when are we going to engage somebody to help us out here, and who will that be? How much will it cost? Because otherwise, if someone said to me, how many spaces do you want to reserve for the fishermen and the this and the that? I don't know, and I wouldn't even know how to decide.
So what about a recommendation from the board of, I remember early on in our meetings, we talked about someone who could come down and, if we pay someone to come down, reconfigure the entire marina, mow down the grass in front of Maya, we could probably create another, I don't even know, maybe another 100 spots down there.
But we could.
So I would say, our recommendation would be, we
master planner.
either need to not let anyone who's not at the marina or walking, and force businesses to park their people somewhere else and not use up all the town spots, or make a lot more spots there and, figure out how to accommodate a lot more people down there.
When the parking at the marina was laid out not too many years ago, it was done by a reputable engineering firm. My impression of it being down there every day is there's not many more spaces to be had. But to elaborate on your thought, which I think is a good one, I think an engineering consultant knowledgeable in that area would look at the bigger picture. The marina parking, the fact that it's accommodating others as a municipal lot, if they're going to conclude a shuttle system to accommodate businesses, boaters, and everybody down there, to look at the big picture and possibly identify areas for a shuttle. We know the demand is going to exceed what is available there now. And I think the big picture should include alternatives, not only for the marina, but for downtown parking as well.
Should we recommend that to the zoning board or I don't know who else, that if another business moved down near the marina, that they should be restricted in how much parking they could have, or that,
How do you control that? The Chamber of Commerce did a study and determined that there's 65 businesses within walking distance of the marina. Okay? I think that's a significant finding.
That is a significant finding.
Therefore, is there not the need for a broader look at marina parking for boaters, business people, downtown business people, to accommodate all of those constituencies who now perceive the marina as the town's municipal lot.
There is still, I think we mentioned this last week, roughly $50,000 that has been raised to study Whitecrest that has yet to be spent. Maybe we recommend that they take that money and use it to, study the marina. So
Yeah.
I,
it happens faster than,
I don't want to tell them how to do their business.
okay.
If we've got a good idea, they can figure out whether they can use that 50 grand, or you can whisper in their ear, but
Well, we've whispered a couple of times, so.
They wear earplugs.
What are we here for then?
Are
we supposed to make recommendations?
if I
That would
could,
sound like a recommendation to
Yeah,
me.
That's
and-
to me, yeah.
And if you, I mean, what they might do is appoint another task force.
if I could respond to that. One of the things that I learned from the first meeting on here is how many people in town are not aware of the operation of the marina. How many people that I've encountered were blown away that there are 450 people paying down there $2,000 or more for a slip, $1,000 for a mooring, that historically, the town is on record as attempting to accommodate with marina parking. Now, that can be changed very easily if the select board wants to change it. Everything is on the table. But I think, we'd be remiss if we didn't raise a red flag now
I agree.
that in 2 years, this definitively is going to be at our doorstep. And why not be proactive?
Right.
And make a simple recommendation based on that, with all that we have learned about the operation down there. Why not make a recommendation that we anticipate this scenario evolving, and make a recommendation that you bring in a consultant to address that broad picture? Because the businesses and the people who see the marina parking as a municipal lot, and they do, are not going to be happy suddenly when 450 boaters have to be accommodated when we have dredging all of a sudden. And in fairness to them, why not advocate that the town be proactive, engage with a consultant to look at solutions?
I think that's a good recommendation, and that if they have funds that they were looking at for the beach, they should maybe view
Well,
those funds as
Well, that's up to
planning
them where
funds
they
for
get the money.
the marina.
that's a town meeting discussion.
Okay.
You gotta rebudget it.
I mean, if we just demonstrate the need, let them come up with the money and the resource.
Right.
Yep.
No, I agree, and it would take an expert to really see how we could maximize it and the engagement, and then when you have the figures, then it would be up to the selectmen on how do they want to bring in the businesses that are affected to help contribute to that reconfiguration and restoration, or are we just going to take it on? I mean, as has been stated earlier, there's one restaurant that pays a lot of money and there's others that don't, but they're all using something. And it's either that or you're going to put the paying customer away, which is the marina, the boater, to accommodate restaurateurs and other businesses. So one is, you've got a revenue stream, you have a product in a sense. You're going to do away with that to accommodate. So that's a conversation for the selectmen, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
really have to grapple with
Yeah,
that.
there's going to be a bloodbath down there, quite
Yeah,
simply. No, really.
No, a lot of people aren't gonna
Really,
like it, but it's a
Because you're
reality.
threatening of putting people out of business by saying X number of spaces are gone. They're going to view it as you're threatening to put them out of business. Only so many people will want to take a shuttle.
I
I'd
think
be
so. We
real
should
hard
take-
pressed
And
to
the
ever
voters
take-
are
ever
going to
take a
say,
shuttle.
why should I pay $2,000, for an opportunity to have a slip, and you don't provide parking when other towns do, and we know that they do.
What is it?
Right.
It's a sticker situation in other towns?
Well, it's public parking. It's
But is
marina
it
parking.
gated? You need a pass to get into the,
Not necessarily. You can go to a public parking area or a designated marina public parking area. But I think Will is right. It is going to be an inflammatory situation, pitting people in constituencies against each other, each one determining they have the greatest need. And if that point, the select board wants to eliminate 200 moorings and slips, that's their position in creating more parking for business. But why even look at a drastic solution like that without bringing in an outside resource first to evaluate it, a
Right.
professional? That's what they do for a living. And I'm sure every challenge they tackle is not an easy one. It's going to be challenging like ours is with limited amount of land. But I think a number of us agreed in the beginning here that everything should be on the table and not rule out a shuttle system with off-site parking without evaluating the present land that's available first. I'm not prepared to draw a conclusion that we cannot have alternative parking sites with a shuttle bus without having a professional in here to evaluate that and to tell me that.
I agree with you there, plus on the, what we know on the shuttle side, for an Ocean Beach shuttle, it would be a huge money loser. No one wants to, not no one, but very few people want to use it because they have all their toys, beach paraphernalia they have to bring with you. It's going to be the same thing at the marina. If you have an alternative site for marina people, most people have a lot of gear to bring, don't they? I mean, they want to be able to drop it off. I can see a point where maybe a portion of the marina gets made into mooring holders and slip holders only during certain day hours, and then maybe at night it opens up. But we
What
don't
did
even
they
know.
do? What did they do with the seashore, though, when they lost beaches to erosion? They have a shuttle system there.
Right.
Because there's no alternative.
Right.
Well,
So people warmed up to it. It was either using that and going to the beach or staying home
Right.
and not going. So their hearts get warmer to the idea of a shuttle system when there's no other opportunity to go to the beach.
Have we ever thought about, what about Mayo Beach being the lot down there that's municipal available to anybody, and making the municipal or the marina lot a sticker lot?
A sticker
So for
lot or a
town
pay lot.
locals, people who have moorings get a special sticker. If you live in town, I mean, why don't we recommend that maybe that parking lot is a sticker lot?
Yeah, but
And maybe have maybe a small portion of it isn't. And those 10 spots or 20 spots are first come, first served for people who are going to other places besides the marina. But the people who walk around there are by and large local people. The people who boat there are by and large seasonal people. That would eliminate the Uber people. That would eliminate a bunch of
Right, but
undesirables.
I don't think, to support Denny's thought, I don't think we can make specific recommendations like that without looking at the whole picture, because the Mayo lot may be one of a few pieces of land that can be utilized in that concept. So why not just state the issue as we see it, as a problem, a definite problem coming soon, and recommend that the town be proactive and address it?
Yeah, we don't have the ability, I mean, obviously, I don't have the ability to say 10 spaces here, 5 spaces. I'd just be making it up,
Right.
So you need someone that at least got, has some expertise in it.
The other thing that has to be taken into consideration is if they do move the beach permit office, that will make a difference.
Oh,
So if you add, say, 100 spaces at Mayo, and you move the beach sticker office, that lightens it up very much from 9 to 4, or even earlier, that's when they get there. And you could determine how much that might free up, because I think the beach sticker office keeps sales by day and just divide by, one person per sticker, see how many parking spaces are used for that.
How do you want to word it?
I'd be willing to compose a draft regarding a recommendation for the marina issue and bring it back to the table.
I think that's a good idea.
I think so too.
You have the most knowledge about it.
No, and I think the recommendation to have somebody to come in and really look at that area is a good, is a real, that is a recommendation. What comes of that will then create a lot of other conversations. But those conversations are all sort of speculative at this point until we have something in front of us that it's a real possibility. These are your possibilities. I mean, we have a study that talked about those possibilities, but that's 4 years old now. And hopefully, if we have another study done, it doesn't age on a shelf. But, and there's also something to be said as far as like saying maybe the select board, you know, there is something about the character of the town that had a lot to do with the water and the fishing and the boats. And you don't want to really lose that. It is part of our character. That is also part of it, as much as shellfishing or anything else. So you can't, that's another constituency that is part of the town and what it was known for since the beginning.
And I think
So just to say, well, we're going to give it to the restaurants now,
I find it
Kinda crazy to me.
interesting.
I don't think that would be what our
I don't think so
recommendation-
either, but, you know, if you suggest it to them, they might run with that, Dan.
Yeah.
Jenny?
Just an aside, but I was at the wastewater committee meeting last night, and Helen mentioned a piece of land that's been tied up in land court for quite some time, that's to the left of the DPW. And it was about regarding septic, like we're gonna need a sewage treatment
Oh, yeah,
plan,
there's gonna
or
be a
at
lot
least a
down there.
spot. I don't think it's gonna go there, but she mentioned that there was a big piece of land there, and that it could be possible that the town sometime look at doing a taking there.
And that's what they were,
So maybe that's a potential, because I know we don't want to be down in the borough, the sand pit, but I'm just.
Why not?
And that, I think the sand pit could be too, but, and that's, the DPW isn't too far of a walk. Like, if you think of Provincetown, if you're parking way up by the school, up by Champaign, you're going to walk that far into town,
Right.
so, right? It's not
Right.
too bad of a walk.
We can-
no, it's not.
And then
Well, I
we
mean,
need
you can get into
sidewalks,
the
but-
trolleys too. I mean, you
And we
could
need-
have a trolley at night.
Buses.
And I think the pedicabs, like getting some inventive kids to.
In our streets, I'm not
business.
sure.
I found it interesting during the great debate on the White Crest lot, that the town paid for an engineer to come in to evaluate that square piece of land to be utilized as a parking area. If the town is willing to pay for an engineer to asphalt, pave a parking area, I do think the town would be and should be receptive to paying for a study of a bigger, broader issue at the marina.
Here, here,
At the marina.
I agree.
Agreed.
And it's something they should be thinking, doing sooner than later.
And that's our recommendation.
I think that's a strong recommendation. I mean, that's what we can definitely conclude, but, you know, a lot of this will come out of conversation, I mean,
Well,
Some
we're
of
not
the
just
things-
having one recommendation, right? We're having a variety of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
that's one. I think the other ones you have here are good. I mean.
right, I think so.
The bus was already underway, off-site parking for the buses. I
Yep.
think Suzanne went into the school committee and asked them to see if they could get use of that parking lot in the summer on weekends. The bus parking charges is already something underway. The move of the beach permit office is underway. I mean, there's just,
The lightning rod, I think, last year was the 4th of July on the ocean beaches.
right.
The lightning rod was one photograph that someone posted on Facebook,
Yes,
Yeah.
of trash,
And
which was totally not representative of anything,
of a regular.
And-
except the big pile of
situation, right.
trash.
I think we should be proud of the fact that that has been addressed in a collaborative way in town with virtually no complaints this past summer.
Right, and that did sort of kind of spin out of our meeting because those things were brought up, and as I say, it was low-hanging fruit, so she ran with it. So a lot of things we would recommend have been already done, but it's good to highlight those things.
I mean, one of the things that isn't here that I think is significant, for example, is that the police department requested and was granted $17,000 additionally in their budget to address that issue. And we also learned in meeting with the two primary bus owners that with what they have volunteered to pay, the projection could be as much as $15,000. So it would offset, for the most part, the increase that the town has had to spend on police personnel for the beaches.
Plus the increased revenue from Whitecrest also contributed $22,000 this year.
Right.
So it's really good.
So I do think we should elaborate. and take-
Well, Joe, that's what I was trying to say, use enhanced police coverage for Cahoon Hollow. activity.
Continue.
Just continue to
Continue,
use.
yeah.
Right, but it's good to have those numbers in there because it does show that there has been revenue, that there were positive things that happened very quickly from this that have been implemented, and,
That's nice, but what are the numbers and where did we get them?
right?
So,
Oh,
I mean, don't throw a number into the air that we don't have some substantiation
Well,
for.
We do.
We have those
We have the-
specifics
Okay.
from
We have
Suzanne.
the revenues from last year and the revenues from this year from Whitecrest.
Okay,
And you have the number of arrests at Whitecrest, at Cahoon Hollow this year. It's down to 1, wasn't it, I think? From I don't know how many last year.
That was Denny.
It was Denny.
And I, again,
It was a PC, wasn't it?
I do think it could be briefly mentioned, but, elaborate a little bit on the system that has been established there. Every bus is now boarded by the police, okay? And that little talk is given about behavior and guidelines and parameters, and we think that has been effective. So there are many components to the system
each one of
that
these.
have worked together in a collaborative way to produce the level of satisfaction we had last summer. I do think that should be articulated.
Also, I think we ought to articulate that the bus companies, the major bus companies are doing something to assist in crowd control and rowdiness, in that they, kick people off the buses if they're out of control.
They've responded nicely
Right.
to our request and have also offered to generate some revenue to smooth the road. And we know, for example, that 22 of them on a Saturday won't be arriving all at one time.
Yeah. The other thing they do is, when someone is rowdy, they ban them for, I guess, from future use, or that group from future use, too.
So maybe to open it up with that, like, we were, you kind of give the overview, the crisis was 18, this is what happened then, we were put together as a group, as a committee, and very early on, because people were reflecting on, the summer that had just passed, suggestions generated quickly, they were feasible, they were acted on, they bore out, and, those that could be implemented for this year were. And kudos to Suzanne and the police and everyone else for doing that and jumping on board. So these are the positive outcomes, and this is what happened. And this is what can happen when people put thought to it and you have numbers and then from our other observations, so then you can go into the statistics of what this year presented. And from everything we could see, from the data we collected, and we're trying not to just come up with what we think everybody should do. We're trying to get it from, everyone, trying to get the best result. People are adapting, and they don't see the beaches as much of a crisis. But what is definitely there, the hot spot that is showing, this boil that is growing, is the marina. And we really believe that our resources and attention should be put into that. The selectmen should start grabbing this by the horns and doing sort of like what happened, let it start generating like what happened in this meeting.
One question I had about the marina, it came up in the various commentary. The L Pier, where the commercial boats, fishing boats, but you cannot park there other than to unload and load, is that the deal?
On the pier.
On the pier?
Actual
There's some
pier.
slots as
Right,
you approach.
okay.
Yeah, and when I cited 450 boaters before, I think it's significant to recognize that they're not all pleasure. We have an active commercial fishing fleet. We have an active commercial charter fleet. These people need to be here, and they're making a living here.
Right.
So that's another important constituent.
Exactly.
See, that, needs to be addressed.
And they keep asking for dedicated spaces. Maybe that's the simplest thing to start with, is give them some dedicated spaces close to their boats and see how it works next summer.
Right.
Either using
Do we
cones.
have any comments from the commercial fishermen on the L Pier?
Yeah, there was one that basically said, yes, not a lot, but I mean, I think there was one or two comments related to the fact that they, would like to be able to use
We
the L
had
Pier.
the charter boat guys.
Yeah, they want one or two spaces for their.
They have their paying customers come. But when I look at that situation, the commercial end of it and the need, along with the pleasure boaters, the Mayo Beach lot idea, I think, is a terrific one. I don't think we'd get many complaints if people had to park there and carry their gear 100 yards, to their boat.
Well, they could do like that fisherman does and just drop it and go park.
Yeah.
Right. No, and that's another recommendation. is
And
to look
don't
at Mayo.
forget, I'm in favor of using that green space, but believe you me, there's a constituency in this town that will raise hell on that issue.
Just
What about the historic
The
structure
answer-
that's?
Will,
using the green, the median.
Well-
The green space,
well,
that will
the
not
answer
be.
is shells.
What's that?
The answer is shells.
Shells, yeah.
The Baker will, a while back I read it,
About that.
looked at the covenants, that the area is to be used for recreation. However, the Marine Advisory Committee did get a legal recommendation on that after 30 years, the covenants are no longer enforceable. That the town can do what they please with that land.
How many years has it been?
100?
Don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Bad karma.
Well, should we split it up that certain people take on certain portions of the
Yeah.
recommendations, so you don't have to do all the work, Denny, or?
I
We already
I
have the
would
marina done
appreciate
by
it.
Joe, yeah,
Yep,
I'll be happy to work on the beach ones.
okay.
okay,
Joe has the marina, right?
yep.
Business district?
Anybody want to do the business district? There's not much to,
I'll be
Yeah,
happy
but-
to.
That's probably going to be the shortest one with
It
a
is the shortest.
number of statements.
Yeah.
But also in terms of the pier, I think that anything that's done, especially if it's something drastic has to be done, is done at the pier. Let's not forget, people are gonna move right into town. So to think that the two are independent, I suspect is not correct.
The use of it as a municipal lot has met the demand for many businesses and constituents. But if that should change, then how is that demand going to be met? And I think it's going to be downtown, in the library, in parking at the church when nobody's looking, et cetera.
you think people would park that far to go to the restaurants on the waterfront?
It's not as far as you think.
It's not as
nice
far as you
walk.
think, but I mean, Mayo Beach
There's a
is
sidewalk.
the equivalent of what parking in the marina, and it's equidistant, really. I mean,
Well, again, you come back to if they had an efficient, fast-running shuttle, anywhere in town is no more than what, an 8 or 9 minute ride?
Right.
is,
You could have a little electric bus that kind of goes around.
That may be something the engineer can look into, is to have not a weekday shuttle, but a weekend-only
That's
shuttle.
what I'm advocating.
Maybe some of the commercial people would support it, you know?
What about a shuttle that stopped at every commercial spot coming from the sand pits, goes down to the marina and back?
Well, it works
Drops you
for
off at all the
Oyster
restaurants
Fest,
that are parking at the
and a lot of
pier.
people walk for Oyster Fest, too.
walk a long way.
May I ask a question? So we're not going to decide on a date tonight for a forum?
I can't.
Okay, that's fine, because I just want to make sure we're not going to do anything in the next couple of weeks, because I have a forum meeting tomorrow night, which nobody knows about, I haven't put it on yet, but they will. And I just want to make sure that we'll look at this for maybe November or something like that.
November, December.
But we're almost ready. I'll just say that we're almost there, but not there yet.
I think we got a ways to go.
Are you planning on composing an opening paragraph or two?
I think so.
Before getting into the body
Yeah,
of it?
and I think we do it in the segments, the marina, the beach parking, and downtown.
We gotta take off. Are we meeting in 2 weeks? Is that?
Question, do you want to? I can't make it.
Teddy won't be here, yeah. Will you be
When are you
here?
going to be back?
What meeting are we talking about?
Just our next meeting, I
Would
gotta.
3 weeks?
next
Take
You
off.
back in 3 weeks?
I'm back in 3 weeks, and then
I'd hate to have a meeting without you, let's put it that way.
Yeah, let's do it in that.
What are you suggesting as a date?
what
What I'm
the-
thinking is of establishing a deadline for these various areas and a vote on them,
Next meeting.
and deadlines are always good for that.
I think
So
so.
maybe people would need more than the 6th.
3 weeks, I
the
think.
3 weeks would be the 13th.
November 13th?
Okay. Let's see, where am I on
Before the holidays, yeah.
I can do it
Assuming
on
5 o'clock here?
Yeah,
But
I'll get the room.
Nice seeing everybody.
Nice to
One
see you, Dan.
thought
Take
would
care.
Homework assignments are due.
Okay. And
Beforehand.
if, you know, we can put that, we can share, if you do something, you can share it. Doesn't mean we have a big discussion online
Yeah,
about
remember,
it.
you run into a problem with the open meeting law,
Yeah, but you
so.
can't
Sorry,
share a
sorry,
document
we can
internally.
share, we're just not gonna make any
We just
decisions.
don't make decisions, right.
No
But we can
decisions.
share that, so
Right.
that when we come to the meeting, if anybody wanted to suggest any changes, we have it ready.
In our group, I can send some
Yes,
beach recommendations
Right.
everybody.
right. We just don't comment on them, that's all. Okay, thank
Dan.
you.
Okay,
All right,
5 o'clock.
so with that,
I'll get a room, yep.
well,
Do you entertain a motion to adjourn?
Let me look at the agenda. Yeah,
I move we adjourn.
I
Second.
second.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.